Hey everybody, so this is part 2 to the story I did last month. So let's just get right into it. So I looked over and I see my mom laying there, and I'm just thinking to myself, please tell me that my mom's not dead. And so I'm sitting there and I'm just praying and I'm looking over at my mom, and she's not breathing, she's not moving. It's just totally lifeless at this point. And I just remember literally, I mean quite literally, praying, Lord, please, I'll do anything, I don't care what it is, anything, just don't take my mom. And it was, I mean, it's hard to gauge time in a situation like that, but I would say that at least for a good 30 seconds, maybe even closer to a minute, I mean, my mom was just totally lifeless. And then just, I was saying that prayer, and just out of nowhere, I mean, it was like my mom's soul just like sucked back into the van and just boom, like all at once, man. I mean, just out of nowhere, my mom just springs back to life. It was absolutely the craziest thing I've ever seen with my own eyes. I mean, at that moment, I was so happy, I was so scared, I was so afraid. It was like all these emotions at once. Like my mom's not dead. Like she's alive. But then immediately all the reality started happening, and my mom was in immense pain, and I'm not going to get into the details, but just the sounds that will never leave your mind, no matter what you do. I don't care what you do. I will never forget the sounds. From coming from my mom, and the people in the car that we collided with. The wife, she was on the passenger side, and she got really hurt, and she was in a lot of pain with the sounds coming from their vehicle. And so at this point, I called 911, and they said that somebody had already reported the accident. I don't know if it was somebody in the other car, or whatnot, but so let me back up for a second. The people in the other car, the husband was driving, the wife was in the passenger seat. The wife got really injured. The husband was, pretty much uninjured. I mean, maybe some bruises and scrapes, but that's about it. Nothing major at all. In our car, my mom was injured very badly, and I was pretty much uninjured. I hit my shoulder pretty bad on the door of the van. But other than that, I was, pretty much physically uninjured. Mentally was a totally different story. So at this point, I called 911. They had said the accident was already reported and that they were on their way. And the next thing I thought to do was to call my dad and let him know, what happened, and that we were going to the hospital and whatnot. And then it hit me. We didn't have a home phone. we all had cell phones. You know, I had a cell phone, my mom had a cell phone, my brother had a cell phone, the one that lives at home, and well, the brother lived at home, he wasn't at home. My mom was with me, and obviously I was with me. So my dad's at home, no phone, no way to get a hold of him. And so the first thing I thought to do was to call my friend where I was gonna go that night, before my mom asked me to take her to my other brother's house. I called them, and you know, it's deeds like this that you'll just never forget. I mean, I called them. It's 10:30 at night. You know, they're not up very much past, you know, 11 o'clock. They're older people. And I asked them, I was like, you know, can you go to my dad's house and let him know what's going on, because, you know, I can't get a hold of him and he really needs to know what's going on. And they said, yeah, no problem. You know, they're probably taking you to Oberlin, so we'll meet you there. And they did. They went and picked my dad up, let him know what was happening, brought him up to the hospital, and then in the hospital was just equally as scary. I mean, this was the first time ever in my life I'd really seen in real life what happens in a emergency trauma situation in a hospital. Like, you know, I grew up watching like ER on TV, and you know, what was that one TV show, like Dial 911 or something like that. It's totally different in real life. It's nothing, in my opinion, nothing like what you see on TV. You know, my mom was really injured, and they really couldn't do anything for her at the hospital that we went to, because it was a local hospital. So they had me all freaked out. They were telling me that my mom had internal bleeding, it was just a matter of time, and they're setting me up for the worst. And it just tore me apart. While the doctors were seeing my parents, the police were there, and you know, they asked me, you know, my side of the story, and I immediately told them, like, look, you know, it was my fault. I mean, you know, our car is the one that lost control and hit them, so it's not their fault in any way, and I didn't hide it at all. I just, as soon as the cop came over to me, I said, you know, officer, I mean, it was my fault. I mean, I know you should never like admit fault on the scene or whatever, but there's just no, it was black and white. I mean, it was my fault. So I took ownership of it from second number one, and you know, from there they made my mom as comfortable as they could, and they were gonna life flight her. They were gonna life flight her, but like when the accident happened, it was barely snowing at all. But by the time the ambulance got on scene, it was really snowing bad outside. I mean, it was like practically blizzard conditions. It was snowing very bad. It was really windy. So they couldn't life flight her. They had to take her by ambulance about 35 minutes away to Metro Hospital in downtown Cleveland, which is the like #1 trauma center in our area. Like if you get in a bad accident of any sort, that's where you need to go. So my friends took me up to the hospital, the ones that I had called and asked to go tell my dad what's going on. And so they took me up to Cleveland Hospital, and from there I seen my mom, up there for the first time, and oh man, was she beat up bad. I don't want to get too graphic because I'm already kind of having a hard time like telling the story, but just like a high level of like what her injuries were is she had a huge gash in her forehead. Like it was literally like a dent and like a gash. It was really odd. And then they said that she had broke her back, and like 3 or 4 different vertebrae were just totally shattered. And her pelvis was shattered on both sides. So that night they had moved her into surgery that night, and they put pins in her pelvis, and they did a fusion on her vertebrae in her back. And when they did the surgery, she was so sedated for so long to get through all of that stuff that she sort of slipped into a coma. And for a week, my mom didn't wake up after the surgery. And that was literally the hardest week of my life. I mean, quite literally. Just waiting. The doctors, they can only tell you so much. I mean, it was just such a hard time. You just wanted to grab the doctor and be like, make my mom okay. But you gotta, at the same time that they're doing everything that they can. The doctors up there were really great. I was up there the whole week. I was reading to my mom. I was talking to her. She was on a ventilator because they had her really sedated and stuff. I mean, the coma wasn't because of the medication. The medications that they had her on, like, she should have been able to be awake. Like, they couldn't tell me why she wasn't waking up after the surgery. And they used the word coma. A lot of things happened after this. But for a week, it felt like a year. I mean, I was reading to my mom, talking to her, just holding her hand, rubbing her legs, just letting her know that I was there, letting her hear my voice. And and then one day we were on our way up to the hospital to visit her, because I was there every day. Every waking minute of every day, I was there at the hospital with my mom. I would get there very early in the morning, and I wouldn't leave until very late at night when they told me that I had to leave. And I mean, my dad needed me at home, because he was worried. He didn't know what was going on until I got home and let him know. So, we get to the hospital the one day, and you know, we walk in and the doctors are telling us that she had woken up, and we walk in and there's like this little tag on her like neck brace thing that she had on, and it was from like the chaplain of the hospital, and he had came in and did a nice prayer and left a little tag on her neck brace thing, and you know, that's the day that she woke up, was after that. So, you know, that's the silver lining of the story, I guess, is, you know, my mom lived. She's really beat up, but she did make it. And I kind of gotta stop for tonight, but you know, next week I'll do this again, and I'll let you know what happened when the insurance company called me, and what happened when, you know, I went to court and stuff for the ticket and everything, because that's a really good story. It's like really good and like really shitty at the same time. So like I said, I'll release that video next week. I'm not gonna make you wait a month, don't worry. But I wanted to let you know part 2, because I know a lot of people were wondering. But definitely stay tuned for the next part, because what happened with the insurance company, I mean, with all the injuries and everything, it's just really messed up. And there's some good things that came out of it too. So, you know, we'll talk about that in the next one, part 3. So thank you guys for tuning in and hearing my story, and I look forward to all your good comments, and talk to you later.